So, in this first introduction part, I will tell you more details about this Java bootcamp. I will tell you what is goal of this course, more details about this course, preconditions and results. And goal of this course is either to teach you or to strengthen your knowledge about Java as a programming language, and more details are about object-oriented systems analysis, software design and programming. We will have quite many work regarding to development environment and configuring this development environment by yourself. Collaboration using version control system, practicing teamwork by developing applications using Java either for web, for Java standalone application or for Android operating system. You also should gain some knowledge what are different kind of roles in software development project, and also you should get some knowledge and experience how software development projects evolve, what are different stages and life cycles of software projects. So this course is performed globally and it's called Java Bootcamp, and initially it was developed by Accenture in collaboration with Massachusetts Institute of Technology or MIT. Particularly here in Latvia, in Riga, we decided that we need to update these materials of the course, and here was my influence because I'm fan of open content and open source software, and I convinced Accenture that these updated materials should be created from scratch by taking only ideas coming from MIT, and under my supervision some of previous bootcampers in their teamwork worked to prepare these training materials from scratch only by reusing good ideas about this course coming from MIT. And therefore here in Latvia we are actually using our own materials, which are still compatible and very similar to these other materials performed everywhere else in Accenture. And official language of this course is English, so you should have good conversational English. Official length of the course is 160 astronomical hours, which means 5 days in a week, 8 hours in a day. We may or may not include lunchtime. Now, when we are working remotely, we tend to not include lunchtime in this, so we usually work from 9 to 6 officially. And for first 2 weeks you will work mostly individually. For last 2 weeks you will work in a team, and all these activities will be rated as much it is possible to rate them somehow precisely and objectively. And preconditions are hopefully satisfied and fulfilled because you go through the sieve or filter to get into this class, so everybody of you should have good conversational English. You should have good skills of workstation usage, like a power user for Microsoft Windows. What will help also a lot if you have good understanding about operating systems and programming languages in general, and which also will help a lot, for example, if you already studied in university something about object-oriented programming approach. If you already did some programming in some kind of programming language, it's not required that in Java, but at least you should know how programming looks like. And also in this particular bootcamp, what also helps is if you also have some previous knowledge about networking databases and operating systems based on Linux kernel, which are usually shortened just to say that these are like some kind of Linux-based operating systems. And if you are confused about this, I will tell in more details later. And the result of this course is that those of you who will finish this bootcamp successfully, and by success in general, what we mean is that if you will endure these 4 weeks, which will be quite intensive, then you will learn the most important parts for software development, like how to write your code, how to compile, debug, and integrate your code in some larger Java project. You will know how to use at least one, maybe few different Java integrated development environments. You will understand basic principles of version control system and how to use them. You will understand general life cycle of software development projects, and you will be able to contribute something to Accenture, starting your internship in Accenture as a programmer, business analyst, systems analyst, or some kind of specialist after this bootcamp. And some of you may get disappointed. And then general rule is following, that if it is too much for you, then of course you cannot handle it. If it's too intensive, some of you may leave this bootcamp, but if you do so, then remember that you shouldn't leave without any notice. You should notify either me as a teacher or Accenture representatives to say your reasons why you decided to leave this bootcamp. Sometimes it's personal reasons, some issues with family, etc. Sometimes you are just not ready enough. Even Accenture thought that you should be ready for such intensive bootcamp. So you notify me or them or boss, you say your reasons, and then you may also try to apply to next bootcamp when it will come, or to some different bootcamp, because Accenture is hiring also different kind of specialists, so you may get your position, your work in IT, also by doing some different technical tasks. And speed of this course is quite intensive. For those of you who have studied in university already, this course is comparable with other course for 4 credit points. Only difference is that it's not stretched in half a year, but everything is compressed in just 4 weeks. So this is quite a big chunk of information and tasks you will need to handle. And it is expected that most of students will complete most of individual tasks, but also that means that some of students will not be able to complete some of tasks, and it is by design, because we are interested also in rating who is more productive and more skilled and who is less, because they have different positions where different previous knowledge and skills are required. So depending on these ratings, they can decide in which particular position they may find your role for your internship. So all tasks will have deadlines. I will tell about deadlines in more details later. Everybody should do as much as you can, and for any task there is some fraction where you can get something done quite easily. To complete these tasks completely, you will have to do more extra work. And schedule for this course is following that most of us will, for first 2 weeks, will work on the same schedule. Some of you may be more skilled and the standard schedule will not be intensive enough for you. Then I will show you where you can do some extra exercises which are not required to gain your knowledge, but which will be indicate that you have enough experience to start working in real development immediately for your internship. And you can work overtime if you like, so more than 160 hours for these 4 weeks. It is neither prohibited nor encouraged. And this is map of the course. And what it shows here, in columns it shows these 5 working days in a week. And of course here you will have also weekends. If you decide to work on weekends, you can do it, but it's not required. And for first 2 weeks you will mostly work on individual exercises, and for these first 2 weeks we will have more regulated break during this working day, and break will be from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Before these breaks, starting from tomorrow, you will also have theoretical knowledge check performed as a multiple choice tests in online application. And somewhere in the middle of these activities we will have 2 different activities for each working day for first 2 weeks. We will also have smaller breaks. They will be somewhere in the middle of this time, but precise time will be up to us depending on how much time we'll spend on theoretical and practical part. And during this half a day for first 2 weeks, usually there will be approximately 2 parts, more or less equal parts for these activities. I will tell you theoretical portion, what you need to know before doing some particular practical exercise, and then other part will be doing actual exercise. This first part about theory may be a little bit shorter, approximately 40 minutes, maybe up to 1 hour, and the remaining part will be for this practical exercise. And then, starting from 3rd week on this Monday, we will still have theoretical topic and description of practical exercise for your teamwork. That will be about project management and collaboration and workload distribution and other related things. And then you will work in teams. And then lunchtime will be less regulated. You will be able to decide about lunchtime by yourself in teams. And then at the end, again, you will need to present your teamwork results at the end of this teamwork, and so other teams will be rating them. And here again, usually lunchtime is more or less regulated. And then somewhere in this class there may be happening some other activities required by Accenture. It may be 1 or 2 days in total, or half days, when you may need to do something else. And it is, for example, if Accenture needs to make focus to some particular technology or project, then some of day may be spent, for example, about talking in more details about some theoretical topic, not related only to Java, but some other IT technologies, and it may or may not cover also some practical exercises, but definitely. And so these blue parts are just the placeholders. It is not told that these will be in these actual days, but I will notify you later if for some half a day or day you will need to do something else. And in general, it is expected that you will work individually for your individual exercises and in team for your teamwork, and that you try as much as you can by yourself. Everything will be allowed to be used, so everything you may find in internet, and if it helps to you, you may use it. And always start to solve this problem by yourself. Then you can ask your teammate or classmate or competing team, because in teamwork usually number of teams is bigger than number of very different technologies where Java as a programming language is used, so you can collaborate and share your knowledge with competing teams, how you deal with some particular issues, and only then you may ask teacher, because you are many, and if you can ask something to your classmate, it is much more scalable than if you ask to the teacher. And when you can use everything, you may find very different and conflicting sources of information on internet. If you get confused, you always should ask your teacher, me in this case, because sometimes there are different priorities and schools of thoughts how to look on different issues, and therefore, depending on these preferences, different kind of solutions may be used in the same problem area. And if you get confused, you should ask teacher all the time, because confusion should be solved. So if you see something conflicting to what teacher told to you or whatever, you should ask, and we should clean this confusion. So about class resources, here, unfortunately to you, you will need to work with configuration management by yourself quite heavily, because nobody knows what kind of hardware and software you are using at your home. And therefore our decision was that at least for initial part of the class, if your computer can handle it, the easiest way to use is to use virtualization, that you have virtual computer inside your computer, which works in another screen, because then inside this virtual computer everything can be made very similar to everything else, so you will have less issues with configuration management. And particularly for internet, we will use quite heavily website called dodo.lv for these course materials. We will also use other tools. Actually, in this class we will use also another server with domain name tools.dodo.lv. That's how it will look. Now about decision and about operating systems. So I hope that everybody of you have enough previous knowledge to know that, like, Facebook is not operating system. Facebook is an app for mobile systems or website where you can spend your entire life. But when we talk about operating systems is a set of software which makes your hardware work. And de facto standard in offices is operating system called Microsoft Windows, but this is de facto standard system for office workers. And by office workers I mean everybody who works under roof in some room with computer, like teachers, like logistic managers, like doctors and nurses, like buyers and sellers, and different kind of managers and helpers, etc., etc. But this operating system is not de facto standard for developers, especially for Java developers. And therefore, first thing you should learn in this class is that tools which are used by users or consumers are different than tools which are used by creators or developers in this case. And comparison here may be like how you consume food and how you prepare food. If you are just consumer of this food industry and you have ordered some kind of soap and it is provided to you with a spoon as a tool to use, it doesn't mean that this food was prepared with spoon only. It may be prepared with completely different tools like knives and other things. And so tools which are used by developers or creators are different than tools which are used by consumers. And if you are in consumer space, like you have previous working experience in offices, then here you would see Microsoft Windows operating system or spoons in most of cases if only soap is provided. But when you go in this back office, in this place where this thing is created, you may see very different things. And particularly for mobile developers, quite popular operating system is macOS, shipped together with hardware provided by Apple. But for these who do not want to use proprietary closed source systems so much, then quite popular operating system, especially for Java developers, are a different operating system based on this Linux kernel. So if we are splitting hairs, then Linux is just a part of this operating system, which is responsible for device managers and low-level operations like managing file system on your hard drive, like managing internet protocol and graphical interface and things like that. But on top of this Linux kernel, we have many kind of utilities provided by GNU operating system, where GNU is abbreviation, recursive abbreviation of GNU is not Unix, Java utilities and many other utilities. And particularly for Java developers, this set of tools on this kind of operating system is much more easy to use than Microsoft Windows. Also, what is important is that every time you want to provide some service in the cloud, and all IT companies are providing different kind of service in the cloud, then almost only operating system which is used for these cloud-based services are on top of this Linux-based operating system. There may be some Windows servers running somewhere if you still need to run everything in Microsoft Windows infrastructure, but these systems are minority even for Microsoft Azure cloud services, and therefore, particularly for developers, which you will become after this bootcamp, skill of knowing this Linux-based operating system is very important and very useful, because if you know how to use this Linux-based operating system, then you also know how to work on these different kind how to set up and how to maintain these different kind of cloud services for IT company. And because almost everything for this Linux-based operating system is free to use and open source, it is quite big anarchy there. And therefore, one of the decisions is what kind of Linux-based operating system you could use. And we will use operating system called Xubuntu or Xubuntu for Americans, because for some of English speakers, X letter coming as a first somehow becomes Z. So your first practical exercise will be to set up probably this virtual environment to make a similar configuration for everybody on your computer, that we will not have too many issues and too strange issues with your configuration and differences on your computer to the other. So now we will have small break between this theoretical part and practical part, but before we make this small break, our computers should always be doing something useful even if we have break. And so this was prepared for remote work link. So open this part, and I will also paste it in chat. And before we make this break, because it may take some time, open this website called xubuntu.org, and I will consistently call it Xubuntu because we, who are not native speakers of English, our contribution to English should be to regularize English as much as possible, because all these irregularities in old school English are just accidents and they do not provide anything useful with their irregularities. So I think that this operating system should be called Xubuntu, not Xubuntu. And you go to download, and you need to download probably for 64-bit systems, because I think that for everybody of you, your hardware supports 64 bits in hardware. Some of you may have 32-bit version of Windows installed on it, but hopefully not. So by default, you should download this file, and it may take some time to download. Not torrent, sorry, where was I? You can use torrents if you know how to use them, but if you do not know how to use torrents, then you may download, for example, I will write it in chat. For example, you click on this link and you save it on your computer. So that's one thing. Other thing which you may do during this break is to reboot your computer and go into basic input-output system or BIOS settings and check that your computer in hardware supports hardware virtualization. As this is only for Linux, it will not help for most of you. So I think that for everybody of you, your hardware will support virtualization, but it may be disabled inside your settings of computer, which you may change during booting up your computer. And one thing what you can do to check it, something like write your model of your computer like. And you Google something like this, your model of your computer. If your computer is purpose built with a different kind of hardware, then you should put your motherboard here. And then you check virtualization support for BIOS. And then either you will see some kind of video material or written material to check that it is actually enabled. One of the issues you may have is that you will have different kind of strange errors, and it may be just because virtualization support is not enabled on your hardware. So that thing you also may need to check. And then also you need to download VirtualBox as this virtualization software and or manager, which we will be using in this particular class. So you go to their website, and then where are downloads, download VirtualBox for your particular operating system, for Windows or for MacOS. This is this one, OS 6 hosts. And here are some other probabilities that you will have some of these distributions is quite low. So you go to Windows host and also download these things. So 3 things you should do individually during this break. If you are not sure, reboot your computer. Before that, check how can you go into settings of your computer to check that virtualization is enabled in your computer. Then download manager for this virtualization, and we will use VirtualBox in this case. And then download installation, let's say file, for this Xubuntu operating system. Any questions or comments on that? Then your hardware is also not IBM PC compatible. Yeah. So you can check it by yourself. I do not know how good compatibility for this Apple M1 processor is and other. If you know something about ARM, ARM currently works as a paid standard, which can be implemented by any hardware manufacturer who pays royalty to developer of these standards. And Apple is quite famous of not following standards very correctly. But you can Google it, and if you will not be sure, we can discuss it later. But check what do they say, and if it doesn't look very promising, then probably we can use different distribution, because Xubuntu is actually Linux distribution on top of Linux distribution called Debian. Then you can use Debian system, which is much more general operating system and works on different stack hardware than Xubuntu. Because Xubuntu is, in general, it is just Debian with different utilities and better marketing and support coming from a company called Canonical. So search for it, and this means you may need to decide to use different virtualization manager. Instead of VirtualBox, you may need to use something else. And instead of Xubuntu, you may use Debian. And also, you may try to use native MacOS system by yourself, because MacOS is much more similar to Linux-based distributions than Microsoft Windows. Other option is that you run everything in your native platform, in your native hardware and native operating system. So search what looks more promising, and also for others, if this virtualization looks too complicated, you should know that in theory Java is a multi-platform programming language, and you may use Java in any operating system you like. But possibility that you may write once and run everywhere doesn't mean that every Java project will run everywhere because of sloppy Java programmers. And particularly for this project you will use for these 2 weeks, it is not guaranteed that everything will work in the same way in Microsoft Windows and macOS operating systems. So, any other questions or comments? Yeah. You can do this by yourself, but I will show in shared screen in general how it should look like, where you need to pay attention. Any other questions or comments? Yes, if you follow standard procedure. Any other questions, comments? I take that as a no, so we make some break. And so I will start showing you what you may need to do for this practical exercise after 15 minutes. Hopefully that time will be enough for you to take some rest and prepare for it.